Hey, mop guy. Center mat. Now. Derek Shaw's voice cracked through the quiet Seattle dojo like a whip. His black belt was tied crisp and high on his waist, gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights. A badge of power he wore like armor. "Let's give the class a little demonstration," he said, his tone smug and loud enough to echo off every wall. At the far end of the mat, Jordan Kane, a black man in his mid-40s, didn't react. He just kept pushing the heavy mop across the floor, sweeping away the dust and sweat left behind by the advanced class that had run late. He'd been the night janitor here for barely a month, a quiet man who appeared only after everyone had bowed out. "I'm almost finished, Sensei," Jordan replied calmly, not even glancing up. His voice was steady, his focus fixed on a stubborn scuff mark that refused to fade. "Didn't mean to interrupt your lesson," Derek chuckled. Loud, exaggerated, the kind of laugh meant to draw eyes. "Look at this, everyone," he called, spreading his arms toward his 10 students. The help's too afraid to step on the tatami. A few students laughed uncertainly. Others looked away. They'd seen this side of Derek before, the cruel streak that hid behind his charm, but no one ever challenged him. Across the mat, a quiet storm stirred within Jordan. 20 years of silence. 20 years since the ring, the accident, and the promise that had ended everything. "Come on," Derek taunted, his grin sharp as glass. "It's easy. Let's show them the difference between a man who lives the art and one who just cleans up after it." He dragged out the words, twisting them like knives. "What was your name again? Jason, Jordan?" A flicker of heat pulsed in Jordan's chest. Something ancient, dangerous, and long buried. His eyes lifted, meeting Derek's for one tense heartbeat. There was a flash there, something so sharp that Derek's confidence cracked. For an instant, he actually stepped back. He recovered fast, forcing a laugh. "Relax, it's just a teaching moment," he said, grinning to cover the tremor in his tone. A lesson in respecting hierarchy. Jordan set the mop aside and straightened up, not with the stiffness of a laborer, but with the fluid grace of someone who'd spent his life mastering control. "All right," Jordan said evenly, his voice quiet but commanding, the calm before the storm. "But when this is over, you'll apologize to your students. You'll explain why you turned their dojo into your personal circus." Derek's chuckle faltered. "Apologize? Buddy, the only thing you'll be apologizing to is the floor, for landing on it so hard." No one in that room had any idea who they were looking at. Jordan Caney, Titan Caney, 5-time world champion, the ghost who'd vanished from the spotlight 2 decades earlier. He hadn't just retired. He'd disappeared, shattered by the death of his best friend and training partner, Raphael the Storm Cruz. He'd sworn never to fight again. But some vows made in grief don't survive an insult. Derek puffed up his chest, feeding on the uneasy silence. "Everyone circle up," he commanded. "You're about to see why there are levels to this. Why a warrior's a warrior, and a janitor's just a janitor. Have you ever seen someone try to humiliate another person just to feel powerful? What would you do if the person trying to humiliate you had no idea he'd just picked a fight with the wrong man? Before we go any further, tell me, where are you watching from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love seeing where our viewers are tuning in from, and if you believe respect should never depend on a title, hit that like button and subscribe to the Final Boundary Tales for stories that prove real strength doesn't come from rank, but from character. The students hesitated but obeyed, forming a loose circle around the 2 men. Jordan could feel the unease in their eyes, curiosity mixed with quiet guilt. Nora Patel whispered something to the man beside her, who only shook his head in silent disapproval. "Now then," Derek said with grand theatrics, gesturing toward Jordan like a ringmaster introducing an act. "Here we have the perfect example of someone who doesn't understand that certain people belong in certain places. This dojo is for the elite, not for, well, you get the idea." The words struck deep, echoes of the same venom Jordan had once heard shouted from arena seats decades ago. But what had once burned in him as anger now lived as something colder, sharper, controlled. "Sensei Shaw," Nora spoke up, her voice steady but respectful. Maybe we could just finish our cool-down drills? It's getting late. Derek's head snapped toward her. Miss Patel, are you questioning my methods? His tone was icy, his eyes narrowing. Sit. Watch. You might actually learn something tonight. Jordan caught the flicker of fear in Nora's gaze. And beneath it, defiance. So, Janitor, Derek sneered, circling him like a predator testing prey. You gonna show us that guard? Or is making a fist too complicated for someone who spends all day holding a mop? The uneasy laughter that followed landed like sparks on dry grass. What's wrong? Derek goaded, voice thick with arrogance. Cat got your tongue? Or are you waiting for the bus? That was when he made his first mistake. Derek shoved him, a light mocking push meant to prove dominance. But Jordan didn't move. The impact rolled off him like rain on stone. He didn't flinch, didn't blink. His stance was rooted, unshakable. The smug grin drained from Derek's face. For the first time, uncertainty crept into his eyes. Interesting, Jordan murmured, almost to himself. The single word sliced through the silence like a blade. It's been a long time since anyone's put their hands on me. There was no anger in his tone, only stillness. The kind that made the air tighten, heavy, and electric. It wasn't the calm before violence. It was the calm of violence, the composure of a man who had long made peace with it. But Derek, blind to every warning flashing before him, doubled down. You hear that? He barked to his students, forcing a laugh. He thinks it's interesting. Let's show him the difference between thinking something and knowing something. Each taunt peeled away another layer of restraint inside Jordan. Not fury, but remembrance. A memory of who he once was and what he'd once been capable of. Across the circle, Nora's fear turned to awe. She saw it, the way his breathing shifted. His posture changed, every movement coiling with deliberate, deadly control. So, Janitor, Derek sneered again, pacing around him like a vulture. You gonna show us how not to hold a guard? Or is that too much for you? Nora Patel's patience finally broke. Years studying inequality in sports had made her fluent in this kind of cruelty, and she knew exactly what she was witnessing. Textbook abuse of power. Sensei Shaw, Nora interrupted, her voice steady and clear. The entire dojo froze. Can I ask a question? She continued. Why do you think it's necessary to humiliate a man who's just doing his job? Derek turned toward her slowly, his eyes narrowing to slits. Excuse me, Miss Patel? Who's running this class? You are, she said firmly, chin lifted high. But that doesn't give you the right to use racial humiliation as a lesson. Her words cracked through the room like a lightning strike. The air bristled with tension. No one had ever dared challenge Derek before. Racial? Derek barked out a humorless laugh. This has nothing to do with race. This is about discipline, about knowing your place. Jordan's eyes opened. He watched Nora, the courage in her stance, the defiance in her tone, and felt something stirred deep within him. Something he thought he'd buried long ago. Nora, Derek said, his voice dropping into a dangerous growl, if you can't respect my authority, maybe you should find another dojo, one that suits your delicate sensibilities. The threat hung thick in the air like smoke. Then, to everyone's surprise, Jordan smiled, slow, deliberate, like a man rediscovering himself. 20 years of silence, guilt, and loss. All the pain he'd carried for Raphael and Jade began to melt away in the heat of Nora's bravery. The young lady's right, Derek, Jordan said evenly. This stopped being about martial arts a long time ago. It's about you needing to feel big by making others feel small. Derek spun around, his face red with fury. You dare lecture me? You clean toilets! You don't know the first thing about what a dojo is. Jordan took one slow, deliberate step forward. The air seemed to change, heavier now, charged. His shoulders squared, his stance lowered. Every line of his body radiated quiet, lethal control. The janitor was gone. The champion had returned. Actually, Jordan said, his voice like ice, I know exactly what a dojo is, and it stopped being one the moment you turned it into your stage. A cold ripple ran down Derek's spine. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, but pride drowned the warning. Enough talk, he snapped, dropping into his fighting stance. Let's see if you can back up that mouth. I'll teach you some respect. Jordan closed his eyes for a heartbeat and let 20 years of muscle memory surge back. The discipline, the rhythm, the blood and sweat of countless hours in the ring. When he opened them again, Derek Shaw wasn't staring at a janitor anymore. He was staring into the eyes of Jordan Titan Caney, 5-time undefeated world champion. Last chance, Jordan said flatly. Apologize to her, to your students. Turn this place back into a school of honor. Apologize? Derek forced a laugh, shaky and brittle. I'm going to put you on the floor. He lunged. His pride was bleeding, cornered in front of his own class. Desperation fueled his swing. What's that stance supposed to be? Derek taunted mid-punch, throwing a wild hook. Where'd you learn that, YouTube? No, Jordan replied calmly, sidestepping with the ease of water finding its path. I learned it in Reno, at the Crucible. The name hit the room like thunder. Nora's fingers flew across her phone. When she read the screen, her blood ran cold. The Crucible wasn't a gym. It was legend. The place where champions were forged. Derek's roar shattered the silence. He came at Jordan hard, jab, cross, hook, each strike faster, more desperate. But Jordan wasn't there. He moved like smoke, slipping past every blow. Each dodge effortless, every counter balanced on precision and patience. Derek's fists cut through nothing but air. The dojo echoed with the ragged sound of Derek's gasps for air. Fight me! He roared, stumbling forward in a wild burst of rage. Jordan moved in, smooth, silent. Stepping so close he could feel the heat of Derek's breath trembling against his skin. You want to know the difference? Jordan said quietly. Between a gym fighter and a champion? Before Derek could respond, Jordan raised one open hand and placed his palm gently against the instructor's chest. It wasn't a strike. It was a touch. Yet Derek's body lifted off the ground as if struck by a truck, slamming into the mat with a thundering crash that seemed to shake the air itself. He lay sprawled there, eyes wide in disbelief, not broken by pain, but by the sheer impossibility of what had just happened. His chest heaved. His lungs searched for air that wouldn't come. That's impossible, he gasped. It's physics, Jordan replied calmly, standing over him. And a lifetime of practice. Who are you? Derek stammered, struggling to his knees. The fight drained from him. Before Jordan could answer, another voice broke the silence. Nora! Someone whispered. She stood frozen, her phone trembling in her hand. Her voice shook, but her words cut clear through the air. Jordan Kane, the Titan, 5-time world heavyweight champion, undefeated. Each word landed like a hammer on Derek's pride. His face drained of color. The dojo fell deathly silent. He had mocked a ghost, a legend, and now stood in the ruins of his own arrogance. If you'd known, Jordan said softly, his tone slicing deeper than any punch. You would have respected me. He paused, his eyes steady. But what about the next janitor? The one without a title? Does he deserve less? The dojo door burst open. Mr. Ito, the owner, stepped inside, his face carved from stone. He had seen the security feed. He had seen everything. His gaze found Jordan first, a flicker of recognition and respect in his eyes, then turned to Derek. Cold fury in every measured step. Son, Ito said, voice low but commanding. Take off your belt. Sir, Derek's voice cracked, his face pale. Now, defeated. Derek's trembling hands untied the black belt from around his waist. The symbol of his authority slipped from his fingers and landed on the mat with a soft, final thud. You have brought shame to this house, Ito said, his tone cutting like ice. You are not a sensei. You are a bully. Sign this resignation or I'll make sure you never teach again. He slid a paper and pen across the mat. The scratch of Derek's signature echoed like the sound of a fall. Without a word, he rose and left, a man unmade. Ito turned to Jordan and bowed deeply. Caney, he said solemnly, you've shown my students what true mastery looks like. Help me restore this dojo's honor, not as a janitor, but as a teacher. Jordan's eyes drifted to the black belt lying on the mat. then to the faces of the students who watched in stunned silence. After 20 years of guilt, silence and loss, peace finally found him. A slow, genuine smile crossed his face, not of victory, but of release. "Yes," Jordan said softly. "I can do that. If you believe true power comes from humility, smash that like button and subscribe to the Final Boundary Tales, for stories that prove respect always wins in the end."